just felt I had to get up and just say that we have to remember why we're here. You know, they wouldn't even let them commemorate today throughout the country. Now, some of you would agree with it, I can understand, that's fine, but that's not what it's about. You know, this is the war we're in now, and this is real. And if we don't all stand together and come together as a community, and the wonderful thing about this is a community. It's the first time in Northern Ireland, I don't know how long, where people right across the community have come together for a higher purpose. And this is a higher purpose. Truth, freedom, and moving over the people is through love. And that's hard. It's hard when people can't see the reality of what's going on because they've been blinded by the fear-mongering and scaremongering of the mainstream media. And look, folks, when you come up against that sort of negative opposition, just smile at them and say, you know, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for your kids, your parents, your grandparents, your families that are sitting in nursing homes and can't see their relatives. For all those parents going into hospital can't even see their babies being born. For all those sick people in hospital who never get any visitors. For all those people who have cancer and haven't been treated, who haven't been seen. These are the real numbers. Folks, God bless you all. Love to you all. Take care. And I hope to see you all in the future really soon.
There's no organisers. We're all doing this together. We all, no more social media. And we word to word, mouth to mouth, as a community. I'm going to talk to 5 or 6 people I know. You're going to talk to 5 or 6 you know. You're going to do the same. Word of mouth, keep it between us, and we're responsible for whoever we talk to. Mouth to mouth. Private mail, you know, there's. Anyway, I contact a few people, he's going to contact a few, you do the same, whatever way you want.
John, make the connection together, everybody here.
Clean up that fucking tree so that you happen. The people between ourselves, no more blasphemous on social media, giving these guys a chance to, you know, harass us. We're doing it right, guys, we're doing it smart, but we don't fucking give up.
Okay. I suggested another way. So in every little town, okay, we will need maybe one person who's going to reach out to the community, because it's pretty obvious now that we can't organize any more peaceful rally. So I think in every single town, we need a number of people who are in the know, who are going to reach out to the community and hand out leaflets or flyers and everything else and talk around them, because here, we all in the know. It's an echo chamber. We're all sort of saying the same things, but now it's a matter of working at our town and village level. So it'll be brilliant if we can get people coming forward in every town in Northern Ireland and to organise locally and commit themselves to a few hours every week. That's the only way forward now, I think. Anybody else has got any suggestions? So we brilliant. Anybody come forward in every town in Northern Ireland? Like we've got Turkstown, we've already got some people in Derry, we've got Buffer Island. Ballinahinch, please. That's what we need, that's the only way. If we can get people at ground level, at town level, we're going to come out and we're going to work at their level. Reach out to the local businesses, commit themselves in the town centre, hand out flyers, inform the population what we call the Joe Mary, the ones that don't understand, who are in fear and things like that. Not right, guys? Somebody else wants to speak here?
My name is Kieran, and I'm here to talk about this whole bullshit. This pandemic is hyperbole at its finest. Across this whole thing, we're seeing the whole fear-mongering from the government and the false statistics. Last year in Northern Ireland, we had more ICU beds, but this year they're suddenly gone. 54 patients in ICU, we have to lock down our economy. solutions, but yet what we have to do is get rid of our livelihoods. The families can't feed their own kids because they're losing their job. But yet what are we doing? Kids are going into school and pushing our masks in Parliament. Because this whole thing, it's just control. This whole control is not, we can't take it anymore. And the whole censorship on all the social media platforms, this can't last. We're gonna have to find alternatives, because these alternatives are the only way that we can find this. We can't rely on Facebook and YouTube anymore, because it is proven that the big tech is using censorship to silence us. We have to find other means, like the community. Anyway, guys, if you guys want to see all the photos in the past 3 contests, if you guys want to see everything, do the NI Truth Seeker. NI Truth Seeker. Get up there first and say, which way?
Selling me short, you forgot my group. Then I'm going to come up here and say, NI Truth Seeker for you as well. Yeah, guys, a couple of groups here. There's a future for us and our children, NI. You save our freedoms. NI Truth Seeker. There's so many groups out there, guys. Just join away. We'll keep in contact. We'll make us bigger, better, smarter. Keep it on the move. Don't stop till we win this. Keep our fucking head.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Rock and roll! Right, the first thing I just want to say is about Facebook. Facebook has been around since 2005. As everyone knows, it's part of Silicon Valley, which is full of American corporations that are pushing this agenda. If you don't get off Facebook, nothing's going to change. We have to say goodbye to Facebook. It's so important. You have to get rid of it. And that, to a degree, includes YouTube as well, because they are censoring our freedom of speech. I have found one platform so far called MeWe that doesn't. MeWe is quite good actually, and it's not as stressful. However, on another note, what I want to talk about is the death of Aaron Doherty, a 17-year-old lad who had Cushing syndrome and ultimately died of heart failure. His family came forward to speak about his death that was put down to COVID-19. I do remember hearing about it on the news, and they said that he had died of it, and I'm thinking something's not right here. The truth always comes out in the end. It takes a lot more energy to tell a lie and to maintain that lie. That is why this agenda will soon burn itself out, because the people are starting to wake up and see for themselves exactly what is going on. There were 2 more deaths last week, or the week before, in the Ulster and the Mater, I think. One person's brother died and someone's father died. Both deaths were put down to COVID. Again, they weren't allowed to see their loved one in the coffin with the casket open. The undertakers denied them that right. And again, another fake death, another fake death, another fake death. Why is this not getting out there? Why are people have this information held for them unless they're on social media? What is going on? The social media is really helping us forward, but at the same time it's stopping us from moving forward. So we have to go back to the old school ways of being in touch with each other. Word of mouth, through the grapevine is the best way forward. And if someone can come up with their own, kind of social media that's independent and free from America, that's what we have to do. So if there's anyone out there that's, tech-minded that can do this for us, and so that we're not part of America anymore, because that's where this is all coming from, is America and China. We have to stand on our own 2 feet here now. Alright? Bit short as well.
Hi guys, how you going? I find this really interesting little piece. I think everyone realises that there's so much manipulation and lies from day one about this whole thing. But I think if you follow the money and you piece it together and you strip it back, you will find that there very much is a ruling elite beyond less than half of 1% of us. And they control our governments, and they control so many giant, mega, multinational corporations. And I found this beautiful piece, and it refers to the World Economic Forum, and it's Parasitic Founder, a man named Klaus Schwab. It's about a 2 or 3 minute read. It's not so much an emotional piece as it is an informational piece, but a very well written piece that I'm going to read out today to you guys. It says is our criminal governments.
But I just felt I had to get up and just say that we have to remember why we're here. You know, they wouldn't even let them commemorate today throughout the country. Now, some of you won't agree with it, I can understand, that's fine. But that's not what it's about. You know, this is the war we're in now, and this is real. And if we don't all stand together and come together as a community, and the wonderful thing about this is a community. It's the first time in Northern Ireland, I don't know how long, where people right across the community have come together for a higher purpose. And this is a higher purpose. Truth, freedom, and moving over to the people is through love. And that's hard. It's hard when people can't see the reality of what's going on because they've been blinded by the fear-mongering and scaremongering of the mainstream media. And look, folks, when you come up against that sort of negative opposition, just smile at them and say, you know, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for your kids, your parents, your grandparents, your families that are sitting in nursing homes and can't see their relatives. For all those parents going into hospital can't even see their babies being born. For all those sick people in hospital who never get any visitors. For all those people who have cancer and haven't been treated, who haven't been seen. These are the real numbers. Folks, God bless you all. Love to you all. Take care. And I hope to see you all in the future really soon.
No, there's no organisers. We're all doing this together. No more social media. And we want the word mouth to mouth as a community. I'm going to talk to 5 or 6 people I know. You're going to talk to 5 or 6 you know. You're going to do the same. Word of mouth. Keep it between us, and we're responsible for whoever we talk to. Mouth to mouth. Private mail. You know, there's. Anyway, I contact a few people, he's going to contact a few, you do the same, whatever way you want.
We all make the connection together, everybody here.
Clean up that fucking tree and say that you have to. The people between ourselves, no more blasphemous of social media, giving these guys a chance to, you know, harass us. We do it right, guys, we do it smart, but we don't fucking give up.
Okay. I suggested another way. So in every little town, okay, we will need maybe one person who's going to reach out to the community, because it's pretty obvious now that we can't organize any more peaceful rally. So I think in every single town, we need a number of people who are in the know, who are going to reach out to the community and hand out leaflets or flyers and everything else and talk around them, because here, we all in the know. It's an echo chamber. We're all sort of saying the same things, but now it's a matter of working at our town and village level. So it'll be brilliant if we can get people coming forward in every town in Northern Ireland and to organise locally and commit themselves to a few hours every week. That's the only way forward now, I think. Anybody else has got any suggestions? So we brilliant. Anybody come forward in every town in Northern Ireland? Like we've got Turkstown, we've already got some people in Derry, we've got Buffer Island. Ballinahinch, please. That's what we need, that's the only way. If we can get people at ground level, at town level, and we're going to come out and we're going to work at their level, reach out to the local businesses, commit themselves in the town centre, hand out flyers, inform the population what we call the Joe Normie, the ones that don't understand, who are in fear and things like that. Isn't that right, guys? Somebody else wants to speak here?
My name is Kieran, and I'm here to talk about this whole bullshit. This pandemic is hyperbole at its finest. Across this whole thing, we're seeing the whole fear-mongering from the government and the false statistics. Last year in Northern Ireland, we had more ICU beds, but yet now this year they're suddenly gone. 54 patients in ICU, but yet we have to lock down our economy. 54 patients, but yet what we have to do is get rid of our livelihoods. The families can't feed their own kids because they're losing their job. But yet, what are we doing? Kids are going into school and forced to wear masks in Parliament. Because this whole thing, it's just control. This whole control is not, we can't take it anymore. And the whole censorship and all the social media platforms, this can't last. We're gonna have to find alternatives, because these alternatives are the only way that we can find this. We can't rely on Facebook or YouTube anymore, because it is proven that the big tech is using censorship to silence us. We have to find other means, like the community. Anyway, guys, if you guys want to see all the photos from the past 3 protests, if you guys want to see everything, go to NI Truth Seeker. NI Truth Seeker. Get it up there, fellas, yourself. Move ahead.
Selling me short, you forgot my group. Then I'm going to come up here and say NI Truth Seeker for you as well. Yeah, guys, a couple of groups here. There's a future for us and our children, NI. You save our freedoms. NI Truth Seeker. There's so many groups out there, guys. Just join away. We'll keep in contact. We'll make us bigger, better, smarter. Keep it on the move. Don't stop till we win this. Keep it fucking lit.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Rock and roll! Right, the first thing I just want to say is about Facebook. Facebook has been around since 2005. As everyone knows, it's part of Silicon Valley, which is full of American corporations that are pushing this agenda. If you don't get off Facebook, nothing's going to change. We have to say goodbye to Facebook. It's so important. You have to get rid of it. And that, to a degree, includes YouTube as well, because they are censoring our freedom of speech. I have found one platform so far called MeWe that doesn't. MeWe is quite good actually, and it's not as stressful. However, on another note, what I want to talk about is the death of Aaron Doherty, a 17-year-old lad who had Cushing syndrome and ultimately died of heart failure. His family came forward to speak about his death that was put down to COVID-19. I do remember hearing about it on the news, and they said that he had died of it, and I'm thinking, something's not right here. The truth always comes out in the end. It takes a lot more energy to tell a lie than to maintain that lie. That is why this agenda will soon burn itself out, because the people are starting to wake up and see for themselves exactly what is going on. There were 2 more deaths last week, or the week before, in the Ulster and the Mater, I think. One person's brother died and someone's father died. Both deaths were put down to COVID. Again, they weren't allowed to see their loved one in the coffin with the casket open. The undertakers denied them that right, and again, another fake death, another fake death, another fake death. Why is this not getting out there? Why are people have this information held from them unless they're on social media? What is going on? The social media is really helping us forward, but at the same time it's stopping us from moving forward. So we have to go back to the old school ways of being in touch with each other. Word of mouth, through the grapevine is the best way forward. And if someone can come up with their own, kind of social media that's independent and free from America, that's what we have to do. So if there's anyone out there that's, tech-minded that can do this for us, and so that we're not part of America anymore, because that's where this is all coming from, is America and China. We have to stand on our own 2 feet here now. All right? Big shoot as well.
Hi guys, how you going? I found this really interesting little piece. I think everyone realises that there's so much manipulation and lies from day one about this whole thing. But I think if you follow the money and you piece it together and you strip it back, you will find that there very much is a ruling elite beyond less than half of 1% of us. And they control our governments, and they control so many giant, mega, multinational corporations. And I found this beautiful piece and it refers to the World Economic Forum, and its parasitic founder, a man named Klaus Schwab. It's about a 2 or 3 minute read. It's not so much an emotional piece as it is an informational piece, but a very well written piece that I'm going to read out today to you guys. It says, our criminal governments, founder Klaus Schwab, the UN, the World Health Organization and its accomplices are using the COVID-19 pandemic to bypass democratic accountability, to override opposition, to accelerate their agenda as they impose it on the rest of humankind against our will in what he terms as a great reset. But 21st century fascism has found different political forms through which to continue its core project of reshaping humanity to suit capitalism through blatantly authoritarian means. This new fascism is today being advanced in the guise of global governments, biosecurity and the new normal, the New Deal for nature and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I'm sure none of you have heard of any of them. Well, they know all about them, and it's a plan for all of you and your kids and mine. Schwab, the octogenarian founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, sits at the centre of this matrix like a spider on a giant web. Whilst communism envisages the takeover of business and industry by the government, which theoretically should act in the interests of people, fascism was all about using the state to protect and advance the interests of the wealthy elite. This ideology of stakeholder capitalism, in which businesses were brought into closer cooperation with government, is so dangerous and so pervasive and is so out of control for generations and decades now, which is why we're amassed here today. Stakeholder capitalism is described by Forbes Business magazine as a positive notion. Even in the context of a particular business, it is invariably an empty label. As the Forbes article itself actually notes, it only means that firms can go on privately shoveling money to their shareholders and executives while maintaining a public front of exquisite social sensitivity and exemplary altruism. This is just like our political leaders, giving you all the smiles and all the chat, emptiness and lies between their ears and between all they say. It's just hollow lies and manipulation. In a general social context, the stakeholder concept is even more nefarious, discarding any idea of democracy ruled by the people in favour of corporate interests. There's never enough money to feed the poor, or to set up play parks, or for public art exhibitions. They always have enough money for war. They can drum up billions at the top of bloody happiness in war. You know, smashed Afghanistan, smashed Iraq, smashed Libya. They're smashed all around them in the name of just increasing the military-industrial complex because of shareholder profit. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all these arms manufacturers, Halliburton's, multi-billion-dollar companies you don't know anything about. They're corrupting your governments and they're setting a political scheme because it's shareholder profit, and these giant elites just run your everything, your media, and all these establishments. It says society is no longer regarded as a living community, but as a business whose profitability is the sole valid aim of human activity. Schwab set out his agenda back in '71 when he wrote a book, and in this use, the term stakeholders effectively redefine human beings, not as citizens, not as men and women, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, not as free individuals, not as members of communities, but as secondary participants in a massive commercial enterprise. That's what we are. We're serfs and we're minions to these tiny few. But the political leaders and the police, they won't let you know that. Everything's okay, go back to sleep, watch the football, drink beer.
We are the 99%.
100% brother! And the police service, we all know 99% of them, maybe 75, are decent men and women. Okay, 70 decent men and women. But they're just order followers now that are serving out the will of the elite, and it's got to stop. Just last minute here. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, describes itself on its own website as the global platform for public-private cooperation. And this is the spin that you need to be aware of. With admirers describing how it creates partnership between businessmen, politicians, intellectuals, and other leaders of society to define, discuss, and advance key issues on the global agenda. The partnerships which the World Economic Forum creates are aimed at replacing democracy with a global leadership of hand-picked and unelected individuals whose duty is not to serve the public, but to impose the rule of the 1% on that public with as little interference from the rest of us as possible. The same empty terms are dished up time and again in reshaping the future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, another one of his books. Just all bullshit, but behind this bluster, the real motivation for driving stakeholder capitalism and the reason for all this crap he was still relentlessly promoting at the World Economic Forum's 2020 Davos conference this year, is profit and exploitation. They've been sold up the stream to giant corporations, huge entities, and they've long since corrupted the minds of our politicians and the rest of it. So it's just time that you were saying, get back to love, put down all the junk food, stop watching TV, realign yourself, start meditating, and you can get out of this shit, because education is the true key. Without educating yourself, you just won't know what's going on. It takes the time to sit down and do a bit of research. Some of it might be boring, just try and get through it. Listen to the researchers, those guys have spent their lives with everything to lose and nothing to gain researching. So just, YouTube's brilliant, you need to speed it up now so you don't have to listen to them if they're too slow. Thank you very much, you're not going on, you're legends.
Right guys, William's going to come up here and speak. He knows a lot. Listen to every word this man has to say.
Listen, this is the perfect day for today. As an ex-member of the forces as myself, along with this guy here, I believe Northern Ireland has been divided far too long over the wrong reasons. They've pushed Catholic and Protestant against each other, and this has been a good training ground for divide and conquer for the last 100 years. Rather than picking dates where one side overcome the other, feel each other's hatreds, we should actually look back to the point in time, 1916, where both governments, British, Irish, promised their people the exact same thing, that if they had both joined forces, members of the Irish Volunteer Force joined with members of the Ulster UVF, they both come together as the people fighting for their background, what they believed in. They went out, gave their blood, and do you want to know something? The governments have dropped the both over. How about we remember that?
My name is Billy Stewart. Yes, I served as a soldier. I also served 28 years as a police officer. I trained police officers. I served in other nations, enforcing human rights. The 2/3 of duty involves methods of beginning. And our previous speaker's right, orange and green is finished. We are here today, united for our children, for our grandchildren. And our civil rights will be trampled under the ground at this point in time. A lot of people, there's some very technical arguments, and some of them may well absolutely be right in legal terms and law. In relation to common law, what is common law? So I want to just put it in terms of what it actually is, in man's everyday terms. Okay? Rights do not begin with legislation, all right? Your rights go back immemorial to being a human being. They go back tens of thousands of years. Nobody needs to tell you that it's illegal to assault someone. Nobody needs to tell you it's illegal to rape someone, or to damage or steal your property. Those are things that in every country of the world, every human being will agree. That's a common agreement between mankind. And that when they refer to common law, that's what they're talking about. It's the common agreement between mankind. It differs from local statutes, such as parking tickets down the street to local council. That can vary from area to area. But common law applies to all of us. You all have your rights, and those rights have to be protected in law. But in Ireland, we saw the establishment of these way back, and started to get into written law, where we see the Magna Carta, which the King then ignored, and later on into the Civil War, tried to bring them into position. We didn't get the actual democratic system we have today until 1689 Bill of Rights, which is still law, by the way, and the 1701 Act of Settlement. Our Bill of Rights was copied later by the American Bill of Rights, and along with their Constitution formed the American Constitution. But it's almost an exact copy of what we're working on in the United Kingdom today, in Britain, and in fact in Ireland. What we have to do is to defend those rights. And that's been done over the centuries. And when sometimes those rights were threatened, people had to go out and correct those wrongs. And we've seen that, for example, and as somebody mentioned there, World War I was really a tussle between the people up top. Ordinary people actually died on both sides of the ground for somebody's money up there. I have no problem with people. I was out in my good uncle's grave out in the Clonfarm Cemetery in Belgium, died in 1917. And in that graveyard there's 3 graves containing 5 German soldiers who I also paid respect to and we all looked after. Those soldiers just died like everyone else. World War II is a bit of a different thing. Because of what we created, we did end up with a lot of problems with human rights at the hands of the Nazis. It was important that all Europe did. Eventually those human rights after World War II were passed down into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the United States and in fact Britain and Ireland were major contributors to, and we signed up to it. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if we signed up to it, because that wasn't signed until I think it was 1948. What Germany did, what Nazi Germany did, was already illegal in international law, even before those words were written down, and they were prosecuted for it. I just want to highlight some of the human rights that are being breached today for each and every one of us. Article 1, the innate right to freedom and equality. Article 3, the right to life. Article 13, freedom of movement. And can we not see that being destroyed today? Article 16, marriage and family. And I don't know, but I know in my house, in my household, and my daughter, there's been attempts to keep those held apart over this time. Total disgrace. The right to property and the peaceful enjoyment of your property. Thought and religion, opinion and expression, assembly and association, and the kick that is storming. The right to petition the government. It used to be in the period of petition the King, but it actually means we have a right to let the government know what we feel. It's a human right laid down in international law. The right to work, which we're denied. The right to education. The right to our cultural life. And a very important one, I haven't written all the rights out here, but Article 29 is extremely important. It's duties and limitations. I'll just read these out. It's a very short couple of paragraphs, but it's very important, the rights that we're upholding here today. Article 29 says 1, everyone has duties to the community which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. 2, in the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law, solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, a general welfare, and a democratic society. And 3, these rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. Article 30, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group or person any right to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights or freedoms set forth therein. Now that may sound complicated. What it actually means, governments can actually restrict some human rights on certain occasions, but it has to be extremely limited. They have to show you exactly why it's necessary to restrict that human right. It has to be time constrained, and it must be specific to the evidence as the objective they're trying to achieve. Here's an example of that. If someone was going to shoot you in the street, a police officer is allowed to interfere with his human right to defend you. What a police officer is not allowed to do is shoot somebody down the street because he thinks in a week he might do it to you. It has to be very specific, the evidence. It has to be timed and at the time. It can't be just on some whim. And we know from the Freedom of Information Act that the government, the CDC, and other government departments have openly admitted they have no evidence to the existence of the particular strain of COVID-19, SARS-2. Now, we're not saying there's not an illness there, there is. But what it is, and the action they're taking on it, is highly dubious. And without that evidence, they cannot enforce the infringement of our human rights, which is exactly what they do at the minute. You might ask yourself why I've waded through all that legal jargon, because it's very important that you understand that, because it affects how police operate with you, it affects your rights, and how they actually operate. It's vitally important the limitations and control the state can impose to its agents, the police, councils and other bodies, to the legality of actions of the police. If they break the law, then they're subject to, in fact, if they breach human rights to this extent, they're actually subject to a tribunal for breaches of those rights. And I told the senior officer this morning, Stormont, before he left, I warned him that in future we will be setting up a tribunal when we change the people on the hill, and we will be holding police officers to account, and we will be putting them on trial. Not us. And it's unprecedented practically anywhere in the world, and certainly in this country, to have practically all of those human rights restricted at the same time. Sometimes you have 1 or 2 for short periods. But all of those human rights that have been restricted to date, pretty disgrace. I was chatting to Anne McCluskey on the way over here, walking up here, she's buried today, and as she was saying, it's like Stalinist Russia. Haven't they politically meet in secret? What a disgrace this society has become. International law, where those rights are restricted, it can only be done so through a proper democratic process. That means an elected parliament up there in the Hill. It means the parliament in England or here is sitting properly, with proper checks and balances, with proper scrutiny, and with consultation with you, the public. And with our consent, either we have elected people up there to specifically do this in their manifesto, or they put it to us in a referendum, and neither has happened. And in fact, the MPs themselves haven't even given the evidence. How can they decide on something this serious? That is a breach of international human rights law. The coronavirus regulations are not signed off by Parliament. They may have passed and said it's okay to have them, but they haven't penned them. It's not their name at the bottom of it. Neither is even the Health Secretary's name. An elected representative, it wouldn't be legal on his own anyway. But we have the Chief Medical Officer, an unelected dictating to us, totally unelected, and a crime in international law. I want to tell briefly what happened at Stormont the last time I was there, and the disgraceful use of force by police against totally innocent and peaceful people standing about. Irrespective of whether they thought they might have broken the law in putting it in place, does not give them the right to use of force. People think the police have some special powers. People think police have a special power. They've got the right to use batons, they've got the right to use guns, they've got the right to use this, that, and the other. I can tell you now, as a police officer, in 28 years, I used a baton once. And that's the restraint the police officers should be putting in to that kind of force. The police use of force is governed by Section 23 of the Criminal Law Act. That does not say in that police officers can do this, that, or the other. That says all of us, you included, have the right to use that level of force to protect yourself, to protect your property, etc. You need to ask yourself the question: if I was in that position, would I have a right to use a baton? No. If you don't, then neither was a police officer. It's as simple as that there. And the same with other uses of force. To do so is a breach of human rights, and one for which the police officer can be prosecuted. Batons were used the last day, by the way. I didn't see anybody who struck by one, but as soon as a baton is produced, as soon as the baton is flicked out, and as soon as that baton is loaded, is what they call it when they hold it up ready to strike, all of those are uses of force, use of baton. That requires a police investigation into that and what's called a baton use report. I'd be very interested to see exactly what they managed to say to justify their use of batons at Stormont the last day. Following mass killings across Britain and Ireland, back in the 18th century, 1700s, where people like us protesting, the government didn't like it, and the government sent the military in, and they shot people, lots of them. The Peterloo massacres in Manchester, I think it is. After that, Robert Peel brought in the police. He wanted to bring in the police system. in 1819. They failed. But his idea of policing was police within the police with the consent of us, the public. They're not a military unit. They don't do what they're told. He based it on a constable. The constables are rank that goes back to the Normans. And every individual constable is answerable individually before the law for his actions. Ordered to do something. He himself must know it's against the law. He himself must know he's protecting somebody's rights. And he himself must justify his actions and his use of force, including using piece of legislation, in front of a court. Failure to do so is a crime. The police officer's job, many people might actually not understand this, but many people think, yes, what does the police officer do? People say, uphold the law. I'll tell you now, it's not. When you go into police training center, they beat that out of you pretty quick at the very start. But certainly, it is hammered into you as a police officer in training at the very start. It is not your job to uphold law. Laws are wee bits of paper put out of Stormwood or elsewhere with certain powers in them. A police officer's job is contained in section 32, and this is now in writing, not only common law, it's now actually in writing. Section 32 of the Police Act Northern Ireland 2000. And then what it tells you, the police officer's job in this order is to protect life, protect property, and to keep the peace. That's it. To try and prevent anything happening against your rights. Now, when we're talking about that, what they actually mean is a breach of your rights by someone else. And when trying to do that, you should try to prevent it, such as, for example, if a police officer is aware of a burglar in an area, you might want to put some bars in to protect your home. All right, you can do that. And if all else fails, to bring the person who attacked you to justice. That's their job. And as pointed out, the police officers, nowhere on there does it say uphold the law. The law is a tool given to a police officer to use when he can justify it necessary human rights to fulfill his actual job. If he uses that law, but he's not using it to actually fulfill one of those roles, it's a criminal offence called malicious prosecution by the police. We were very lucky this morning to have a chief inspector over there. And as if he put some very poignant questions to him. I've explained to some people around this morning what a police officer's job actually is. I ran this chief inspector and was trying to intimidate us all over there, all 7 of us. The party was more than 18 because people were walking dogs somewhere, the same somewhere. And when they were trying to intimidate us, I asked them the question for the camera, for the people with me, what is your job as a police officer? To be fair. Somebody's lost a nationwide card. Come over here, we'll get it to you if anybody's lost that. He was asked the question, what is your job as a police officer? And to be fair, he repeated exactly what I just told you. Protect life, protect property, keep the peace. I then put it to him that he is well aware, as a chief inspector, and law, it's only a constable, by the way, that's only internal rank for work purposes. But I put it in, as a chief inspector, he's well aware. He used pieces of legislation, not in pursuance of his actual job under Section 32 of the Police Act. It's actually a criminal offence of malicious prosecution, to which no comment and walked off. To which he was informed by me not to forget the rule get changed in that hill up there, and when that comes, we will have a proper tribunal that they will answer for what they're doing. And they can be expected to lose their livelihood, their money, and their liberty, sitting in a prison cell.
Brilliant.
I just want to go through some and put some things to you. We're not going to over here today. I'll make the point for you. There are those who applaud restrictions on marriage, sexual relations, testing of drugs to allegedly cure illness and injury, or those unwilling to comply with immunisation compounds, justifying research into antibodies for prevention and treatment of contagious disease, mass sterilisation, or being justified as a campaign to cleanse society of individuals who would otherwise be seen as biological threats to the nation's health. Does that sound familiar today? All being pushed by doctors genetics, physicists, anthropologists. Those arguments may seem familiar to you today, but those arguments fail to comply with society and they fail to comply with international human rights law. And more importantly, those sound familiar to you today. I can tell you the people pushing those doctors pushing that is 1933 Nazi Germany. It was 1935 Nazi Germany. And it was up to 1945 Nazi Germany. What I read to you is not today. That's exactly what they were saying back then. And it wasn't just about Jews. 225,000 German people were executed before the Jews. They made the way before 6 million Jews were massacred. After the war, different story. We had the International War Crimes Tribunals in The Hague, and we knew that people there were prosecuted. I'll just give you some of the figures. 161 of them were convicted in the tribunal, of which 37 were sentenced to death. Others got 30 years in prison, 25 years in prison, 20 and 15 years in prison for their crimes. But that's only the top ones I read about. At the ordinary German courts, tens of thousands of Germans were convicted, lost their homes, and imprisoned for shorter periods for also breaching those crimes. Other countries followed suit. We'll just give you the figures for the Netherlands, being one of the countries. The Netherlands prosecuted these people from the end of World War II up to the 1980s. So if those police officers today think they're getting away with it, 40 years down the line they can still be coming looking for them.
Brilliant.
The Netherlands set up a tribunal in which they convicted 14,562, of which they took 152 to death, and about 10,000 were given prison sentences in excess of 3 years. In the lesser courts in the Netherlands, other lesser police officers etc. brought to trial, 49,920 convictions, of 30,784 were given sentences between 1 and 10 years in prison. So if people today think they can trample over our rights, they need to look back in history, because this is what's coming down the road when we get things sorted out and our human rights re-established. German doctors in particular were put in trial, and they basically caused a bit of a stir at the time because they were put in trial for these crimes against humanity, forcibly putting people through various experiments, giving them vaccinations and whatever. And their main defence, they had 4 main defences. One that had been passed in law by the German government. In fact, it was. The German democratic government voted 44 votes in 1994. They passed those legislations. Didn't save them against human rights. The second was they were following government orders. Following orders is not an excuse for breaching human rights. 3, it was for the common good and health of the nation. You've never heard that one. That does not excuse the breach of our human rights. And 4, doctors in other countries such as America were carrying out similar experiments, and that was true. Okay? So the difference that came out with the Nuremberg trials was what became known as the Nuremberg Code on Medical Ethics, which basically says you have to give consent, and this is absolute, there's no variation in this. You must have informed consent, you must be given all the information without being forced, without being held down, without being threatened with money or coerced in any way. You must give free consent for someone to medically interfere with you in any way. Breach of that, breach the Nuremberg Code. Some of those doctors were executed. People today need to think about that. There's many doctors, nurses, and some of my family. There's people in my family connected to the police. I'm ex-police myself, and there's an awful lot, actually, of very good police officers out there, and people in the nursing profession. We shouldn't forget that. Some of them feel under a lot of pressure that they've been put under, unfortunately. But it is like no excuse for them to actually act on that, to breach your rights. People have stood up in the past. I know lots of police officers who stood up and got into all sorts of trouble with police, including me. and where I had to go and get legal representation to defend me because I refused to break people's human rights. I refused to break the police and criminal evidence order and what was contained in that, and how I conducted investigations. So, trying to prosecute me for refusing to carry out an order. Point is, it was not a lawful order. My solicitor is now actually a district judge somewhere, and he's actually a pretty good judge. But he's a good solicitor.